Good evening, everybody. John Jerkowitz here in the Career Corner. Took a couple weeks off. I'm working on a real special project that I'm going to share with you before we end the hangout this evening. Got a special guest with me this evening, Ms. Catharine Symbleme. Catharine's a brand new solopreneur. She's raised here. First time in a Google Hangout live on air. Met Catharine in a mastermind coaching group a couple Saturdays ago and was really taken and interested with her commitment to her new career. And rather than listen to me prattle on for 4 or 5 minutes, well, I know you'd love to listen to me prattle on for 4 or 5 minutes, but I'm going to turn it over to Catharine here in a second and let her tell you a little bit about herself and a little bit about how she got into this whole social media consulting area. But the first thing I want to say is I've really kind of come to a few moments of enlightenment here in the past few weeks, because what I'm starting to see, and I'm going to have Catharine address this a little further in the Hangout, is that the solopreneur is really a career path that oftentimes isn't treated as a career path. It's kind of treated as that man or that woman out there with some crazy ideas, doing some crazy stuff that is trying to make a different world. And my feeling is that it's become a very legitimate career path. And I think it's something that we're going to need to address in the future because there are more solopreneurs today than there ever have been. So, without further ado, Catharine, I'm going to give you the floor.
And then the real question becomes, what the heck do I do with the floor now that I have it, right?
Well, you can tell us all about yourself.
Okay. I have this floor. Well, I first of all, I'm the first person to actually try to run a small business or become an entrepreneur or do anything of the sort in my family. You know, for generations, we've all been employees. So this is brand new territory for me. My background, well, okay, background is in music. I've been a musician forever. I play the flute. I just started picking up the fiddle, so I'm brand new at that too. I think it was in 1993, I got into radio. Just walked into a radio station on a whim and said, "Hey, you guys need any DJs?" And then they said, "Sure." And it was a classical radio station, so they basically hired me on the spot because I come from a choral background. I could pronounce all the funny, last names of, like Rachmaninoff and Rostropovich and all that stuff. So did that for a total of 8 years. And I love radio. I'm afraid it's a dying medium, but radio just really, there's a part of me that both wants to be seen and wants not to be seen, and radio enabled me to do both at the same time. I could make my voice heard without actually being seen and being mobbed on the sidewalk, that kind of thing. And the whole aspect of getting all of the moving parts to come together into a coherent broadcast of some kind. Okay, you bring in this feed, and now you got a time, and it's the exact timing, so you bring in this feed, now you got to pop this up, and then you got to talk, and at exactly 30 minutes before you do the station ID. So I really love coordinating all of the different parts. And making that into a fluid whole. It goes back to my music background. They're kind of doing the same thing. And my last radio gig was this nonprofit station here in Alamosa, southern Colorado, where I part of what I did was coordinate the underwriting. And I acted as the liaison between the underwriting reps, the sales reps, and the staff and the underwriters. So I was coordinating all that and creating the schedule of spots and stuff. So again, coordinating all these little pieces, and making it into a fluid whole that made some kind of sense to the listening audience. And the piece of that I really enjoyed was helping the local businesses get their information out there. And I got really good at, you throw me a bunch of information, I can turn around a 30-second radio script in like 5 minutes flat. And I really, really enjoyed that. So that was the job I had before I made the leap into entrepreneurship. And the thing I leapt into was, inspired by my husband, who's been, selling cars and doing small businesses and being an entrepreneur since he was like freaking 17 or something. I mean, the guy's insane. And he really knows how to hustle. He's been my best supporter, my best friend, and my best teacher through this process. And things were developing at the radio station. I was getting kind of unhappy with the management, unhappy with the board of directors, and I was kind of thinking about leaving. He says, "You know what? Start now and think about think about starting a small business. Think about something you've always wanted to do." And so what I ended up doing was I thought, well, I really like animals and I love dogs, and I had this deaf dog for a few years, and I taught her sign language, and all that stuff. And I thought, well, okay, why don't I start a website about deaf dogs and pass on the information I knew that I learned, and I'll walk dogs in the meantime because I heard good things about dog walking, and so I had this little thing going for a while, and I had to stop the website because I couldn't afford to keep paying the website fees, but I'm still doing the dog walking. And trying to think of ways to beef that up and make a go of it. And
I have a question for you.
Okay.
You talked about how supportive your husband was, and from that perspective, I think you're fortunate because a lot of people that begin this journey don't always have that support system in place. How meaningful has that been to you as you relate to the success you've had so far?
Unbelievably. I could not have done this. In fact, it wouldn't have even have occurred to me without having Ralph's help in this whole process. I mean, every morning, bouncing ideas off of her. Mostly, I listen to him, as he's talking about his coffee shop and getting it off the ground. But I'll also come up with questions to ask him. I say, hey, what do you think of this? How do you feel about this? I'm practicing on his business, doing the social media, and getting that up to speed. And he's just been an unbelievable help through this whole process. Building the website, everything. Yeah.
It's if you'd like, you can go ahead and give his coffee shop a shout out here.
Okay, sure. Yeah, if anybody happens to be, traipsing through Alamosa anytime in the near future, it's not exactly on a beaten path. But we have a great railroad station. But anyway, his coffee shop is named the big one down the road is going to be Cafe, Kaffe, Kaffe, so cafe and then cafe. That hasn't manifested yet. What he has now is called the K Squared, or the K2 Coffee Lounge in the Green Spot Garden Center. And you walk into the garden center past all these gorgeous plants and these fish and all this stuff, and he's there. And he started this. It's a point of pride. He's actually started this little business debt free. So he's bootstrapping it all the way. There's no funding, no credit cards, starting small, just coffee and a few snacks. And he's been open for a month now. So
And a
it's
lot
a
of
great
courage.
place. This is not a path for the faint of heart, no.
For sure.
Yeah. This is not for wimps.
No. And you know what? I think it's probably the best piece of advice you can give anybody, because this is not for the faint of heart at all.
Oh, God, no. If you think you're just going to run out there and get rich, it's like, no.
Yeah, I remember.
I had a week of dreams, and that it was very short-lived.
I remember back in 1999 when I started out on my own, and 3 of our kids were still at home, and one of them came up to me one day and said, "You own your own business. Does that mean we're rich?" Okay.
Oh, child.
Yeah, here I'll share some debt with you. But let me go back a minute with you, and something you said earlier about you walked into the radio station and you just said, "Hey, I want to work here." That must have required a lot of confidence and a lot of self-assuredness on your part. My question for you is, as you kind of left that environment and have gone into something completely different, support or not, how much of an impact has your own self-esteem and your own self-confidence helped you in making this transition?
Well, I don't know whether to call it faith or just sheer insanity. But the way I figure it, I wouldn't have survived all of the stupid stunts I pulled when I was a little kid and a high schooler to just, croak in my 40s. So you're like, maybe, like I said, maybe I would say I've always been kind of adventurous. I'll try anything. I'm like, what the heck, if you want to call that self-confidence, it's fine with me. It sounds good. But I've always been a bit of an adventurer. I'm easily bored, which means I was a lousy employee. So,
if you had to do it over again, okay, and you had the opportunity to go back, what would you do different as you made the transition?
I would have, as I saw things going downhill in the management, saw things falling apart the way they did, and that happened pretty soon. I mean, like 6 months into my career at this radio station, I saw things kind of going, I would have started then to think about what it was I wanted to do next, what I needed to do, how I was going to market myself. I would have done a lot more study on the market itself. This is kind of an oddball place to live. It's may I use the term?
Sure, knock yourself out.
Okay. I thought I coined the term rural ghetto. But it turns out some other smart apple back in the 90s came up with it before I did. But anyway, it's what happened after large agribusiness came in and pushed the family farms out. And we have the drugs, we have the gangs, we have the violence, we have everything that the big city ghettos have. It's just that we're more spread out and there are cows and open carry laws. But turns out that because it is a depressed area and there aren't jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, people don't need dog walking, and so I should have done more research on the local market before I took the plunge like I did. Planning. I wish I would have done more thinking about how to reach customers around here. I mean, I kid you not, people actually still put up flyers here, and that's how they market. It's, you know, so
So this
yeah,
whole wonderful virtual platform you're embarking is almost a necessity for you in the area you live in.
right, yeah, yeah.
And let's move forward a little bit. And again, I think it was good that we've got a flavor for where you've been and where you are. But you're quite the blogger too. Is that correct?
I love blogging. Yeah, I've always loved writing. It's right up there with music on my favorite things to do. Yeah.
And if I understand correct, the one blog I'm familiar with you're actually using as your web page right now?
I have 3 total that I'm using. Two, I guess, using as web pages at the same time. It's a thing that was taught to me by a small business association person not too long ago, and so I'm just I'm tinkering with it right now to see how it works. Yeah.
When you're blogging, could you talk to us about some of the things you're blogging about?
Sure. On my Symbleme Services online blog, what I talk about, of course, is social media, blogging, good things to write, the ways to relate to your customers, relationship marketing, all the stuff that people like to talk about on that particular platform. In fact, I just created a blog post for, it's geared towards small businesses like the ones around here who don't have an online presence yet, why they need one, what to do. Eventually that's going to morph into an ebook, I hope, and sell, like millions of copies and make me rich. My other blog is actually about the transition that I'm going through now, transitioning from being an employee to being, you call it a solopreneur, that works for me. And kind of the down and dirty, the mental shifts, and that has been just huge, trying to get my mind warped around the whole, oh my God, I am responsible for everything. There's nobody around who's going to tell me what to do, which is a good and a bad thing, because there's also nobody to blame for when I screw up. So the other blog, so there's some Symbleme Services online, and there's also Quit Your Job and Thrive .blogspot. Both of those are my 2 blogs, and I hope I haven't just strayed off topic too badly here. But.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
One of the things I like to be able to do when I have a guest here on the Career Corner is to be able to give you an opportunity to market yourself, especially for a new entrepreneur like yourself. It's great to have the support of the people close to you, but sometimes allegorically, we walk out the door and close it, and we walk out into a very large open space, and we're kind of left to our own devices. And I know, Thomas Edison was famous for saying he didn't care about the 999 failures. All he cared about was the one success. It was a whole lot cheaper to live in 1901 than it is today. There's more entrepreneurs, solopreneurs than there ever have been. Why do you think that is?
I think it's part of, if you want to back up and look at the big global picture, I think it's global. It's part of what's happening economy-wide, at least in the U.S. What we're seeing is a trend of, I don't think the jobs that are being squeezed out now are ever going to come back. I think what we're seeing now is the end of corporatism, which is something that, it's something that the beatniks, something that the hippies, something that, even the people in the 80s wanted to see. And we're now seeing that, and we're actually giving birth at this moment to a whole new economy. So we're going to see more and more people, more and more localization, more and more people starting their own businesses, starting their own entrepreneurial endeavors. And things are not going to go back to the way they were in the 1950s, where you go to a 9-to-5 job and you retire after 40 years. They give you a watch and you live happily ever after.
Let me throw you a curveball.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, I think that was very well put, and I agree with everything you said.
Okay.
Do you see yourself as being one of those people that's a voice for that change and transition? You write a number of different blogs on social media issues. You've kind of said when you were working in radio with some of your customers, you started pushing that towards that social media. And I think if you go back to the early part of the 21st century when the whole dot-com phenomenon became the crest of the wave, that everybody was involved in a dot-com, I think the reason that wave kind of crashed into the shore is there wasn't a solidified voice. Do you see people like yourself kind of filling that void today and in the future and becoming the voice of that transition?
If I can do that, I would love it. If I can somehow midwife or facilitate, reassure people that yes, it really is okay. It's rough, but yeah. If that can be a role that I can fill, I'm like Joe Schmo. I'm no smarter than anybody else. If I can do this, then anybody can do this. So I would be honored to be a voice.
You said something that really kind of, I think you crystallized a lot of my thoughts over the last couple years when you talk about the beatniks and the hippies and even those people in the 80s, okay, with
that
their
would be me.
with their shark skin suits.
That would not be me.
And I think that there is a very whimsical portion to all of this, a very creative portion to all of this. And tell me if you agree with me or not. What I'm starting to see happen is there's a real transition here to business planning. That this just isn't the folks from the 60s, 70s, and 80s kind of doing their own thing, but there's becoming that formal business element that's now slowly creeping in. Do you agree with that?
I hadn't thought about it, but yeah. There does seem to be some kind of congealing of what do I want to say, like business support, in terms of, how do I want to put it, like not just going out there and opening a shop, no, you can't really do that anymore. And I think part of it's because the competition is just too stiff. It's like it's the difference between the musician who takes their instrument out to the sidewalk and just busks for a living, and a musician who actually systematically takes this gig and then takes this gig and then sticks with it and then sticks with that and then starts another gig. And there's a systemic feel to it, where perhaps there wasn't one before. So we're not quite as crazy as we used to be in that sense. There is a sense of organization to it. Yeah.
Okay. You're a fledgling entrepreneur. You're just kind of getting your sea legs about you. And there still is a wonderful community of people. I sincerely believe that. It's what attracted me to Google Plus. It's what kept me at Google Plus. That there are just so many people out there willing to help you, willing to kind of shepherd you along the way, and even on the days and nights where you really aren't quite sure yourself, there always seems to be somebody there you can even go into a private hangout with and just talk and mastermind a little bit.
Mhm.
So I guess in closing, give you a few minutes, and there's probably 3 or 4 million people watching this hangout. Okay, I probably shut the website down. There were three or four people watching this. I'd be happy. What can we do to help you? What is here you are as an entrepreneur, and this was kind of the method in my madness of asking you to be here tonight, because when we were in the green room before we started the broadcast, one of the things we were talking about is entrepreneurship as a formal career path, and how there's more people entrepreneurial today than there ever have been.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not like you can go sign up at the local community college and take a class.
Mm-hmm.
What can this community do to help you?
Well, you've already helped me a tremendous amount, John, just by doing what you've done, and I'm incredibly grateful. It's different from the people who just bring over, a sack of beets and say, here, but gosh, good question. I'd sure like to meet some other people who are doing the same, doing the same kind of shift that I am, especially the mental stuff. That is the most difficult. I spent the first year of my new life like a deer in headlights. I had no idea there's no, you think of puzzles, there was no framework even into which to slot the puzzle pieces. I don't come from a corporate background. I'm not from a management background. It's simply so maybe somehow create an ABC's kind of framework for us complete newbies. And it's hard to do when you haven't actually tread that path. If I went back and tried to teach flute students, I'd be hopeless. It's much easier to teach it when you're actually living it. I don't quite know. I don't even know enough to be able to ask for help.
There you go. What do you got in the pipe right now? You were talking to me a little bit before about an ebook you've got coming out later this fall.
Yeah, I've decided, 2 ebooks, but the first one is going to be the how to set up a basic online presence for small businesses who don't already have one. It's called Word of Mouth Marketing, the Shocking Truth and What to Do About It.
Cool.
I think that's going to be the title, but something along those lines. And I've decided that it'll go out mid-October, like October 13th. Okay, all right, I've said it. Now I've got to commit to it, right? My feet are in the fire. I saw this Google effect. Okay.
Okay, what else you got going on?
Other than the blogs and the dog walking and trying to, I'm still learning about the social media, but I've come a long way in 6 months, and I'm hoping to start that up as a consulting business. So setting up people's social media profiles, initially, getting them started, if they're a local business, doing the local business SEO, so getting them on the business listings, that sort of thing. If they want me to create content for them, I'm happy to do that, and I do that well. Yeah.
And if we want to get hold of you, if we want to help you, or we want to use your service, how do we do that?
Best way to probably would be to go to Symbleme Services online, one big long string of words like they do, .blogspot.com.
Okay.
And my contact information is there.
Okay.
Right.
Catherine, thank you
Thank
for
you.
taking the time this evening. I know this was kind of your first jump in the lake, so to speak, with this, and from my perspective, you did very well. One of my commitments is, it's kind of been my tagline for a long time, is that I help good people become better. And I know there's a number of people watching tonight. My exhortation to you is, if you can give Catherine a hand, if you can point her in the direction, if you even want to adopt her, I'm sure she'd be more than glad to work something out with you.
I'm house trained.
Yeah, I did tell you that I had an announcement I was going to make. So Saturday morning, 6th of September, my ebook, These Three Things, will be up on Kindle. I don't know if it will be available for purchase Saturday morning. A lot of times Kindle has some lead time on that before it actually hits their store. This is going to be it's a very short book, and it's about the three things I think are necessary for us to lead happy and successful lives, regardless of what we're doing. And the good thing about it is we're starting this off to the entire world for 99 cents. It's about 40 pages long. I hope you give it a look. Something I'm real excited about. This is my first venture into e-publishing. So just keep looking at my profile page and keep looking at stuff, and you'll see something come Saturday morning. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Catherine, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to spend some time with us, and we will talk to you next week. So good night, everybody.